Reuben, a week or so before the budget, you met with the Prime Minister and presented your association's wish list for the budget. Firstly, were your expectations met last night? And secondly, and more specifically, the second round of vouchers will be launched in January. However, the allocation for the hospitality and F&B sectors has been reduced from 80 euros to 60. How do you feel about that? And do you agree with the timeline, or would you have preferred the vouchers at, say, Christmas?
Yes, thank you, Terence. I'd like to go a little bit back to answer your questions, actually. 2017, 2018, and most of all 2019 were possibly the best years for the industry I represent. And up to mid-February this year, the indications were, as Mr. Gavin Gouria said, were that the year would be another positive one, in spite of the fact that it would not have been as good as 2019. Come third week of February, and the international news started talking about COVID, sales dropped down in an incredible manner. It was obviously emergency in the sense that I remember clearly talking that sales between a Friday and a Monday went something down like 50% or 60% when compared to the previous week. So we immediately started talking to government on the issue, because there was an evident need that we needed to either rectify the situation or take measures to avoid massive unemployment. Hats off to government on this, because we were welcomed immediately, and not just us, all the stakeholders, and give and take, we came up with this mechanism. Now we call it wage supplement. So at that point, certainly, it saved the tens of thousands of jobs we were talking about. Come after the lockdown, there was the obvious need that this wage supplements to be carried forward, because sales would not pick up as before. It was too early, there was still the fear, the virus is still with us, and what have you. So even there, government proceeded. And then they came up with the good idea of the vouchers, which I actually put it at the same level of the wage supplements, if not more, during a certain period, because the regular surveys we do indicate that July and August were extremely good, and depending on the areas now, for example, in the south of Malta, or the area we refer to as the south of Malta, some of the sales in restaurants were actually, 80% of the sales in restaurants were actually coming from the vouchers themselves. On average, throughout the island, we had 60% of the sales coming from the vouchers. So that meant that without that vouchers, we would have certainly had a bad experience in spite of the wage supplements, because as Roderick was saying, the other costs remain there. Before the budget, as you said, we met last week or the week before with the Prime Minister and the ministers concerned, and we did have various propositions. Some of them were taken on board, others seem in the pipeline, and some did not. Certainly, we insisted a lot on the wage supplement and the extension of the vouchers. We had said that the extension of the wage supplement should be up to April next year. And all right, it's not April, but at least it's March next year, with the possibility to review depending on the situation. So we are very positive on that. But if I had to look at another side on the wage supplement, we do feel that with the adjustments that the minister referred to, we need to take into consideration various aspects. Now, the minister said that now we have data, now we have the VAT returns coming in for the periods, so we will adapt in accordance to the data we have. However, there are various questions that do come to my mind, in the sense, we had a positive impact with the vouchers themselves. So the VAT returns will include the sales of that vouchers. So it is not an exact reality that we are analyzing if we do not pull out that vouchers. Secondly, the VAT returns do not incorporate all the costs, in the sense there are costs which are exempt or out of scope for VAT, which are not included in the VAT return. So even if we take account of the costs reported in VAT returns, we may still not have the true picture of the situation. And just to give an example of the costs not included in the VAT return, it's the wages themselves, right? One thing we are saying is, with respect to the wages is, first of all, that in the case of restaurants, we'd like that the wage supplements go back up to 800 euros instead of the 600 that were revised way back in July. But more than that, we need to remember that in the industry, there is a lot of staff turnover. So waiters, dishwashers, cleaners, what have you, chefs, change regularly from one restaurant to the other. So you may say, what is the problem? The problem is that by changing job, that person has terminated with one employer and has been employed by another, which means that person does no longer qualify for the wage supplement as it is today. So what we are saying is that given the turnover in the sector, this thing should be taken into account, because today we have restaurants reporting that 40%, only 40% of their employees are actually now covered with the wage supplement. In this context, we are encouraging government that in these adjustments that the minister has announced yesterday, these things need to be taken into account, because now we are no longer sustaining the whole industry as we were in March. That's a distorted way of seeing it. We are helping 40% of the industry's employees. So if you ask me if you're happy with that situation, I would say definitely not. With respect to the other measures, there are measures that are obviously still in the pipeline. The budget in certain aspects was very vague, and the mechanisms, like in any other budgets, did not come out from the budget speed. Perhaps what we may also discuss, and I agree a lot with Roderick on this, is when it comes to the rent. There is a huge issue when it comes to rent in the sector. To be fair, during the actual shutdown of the restaurants, there were many landlords that have accepted to either reduce the lease, the rent, or actually waive it. Obviously, not everybody did. However, as soon as we moved out of the lockdown, the landlords expected now that they have their full rent back. But the fact that the restaurant opened the doors, we didn't have a flock of people going back and business as usual. And let's not forget that the rent, when this came up, was in an upward trend, possibly an unprecedented way. The rents were going up. So that is an area that we would like to explore. We have a similar situation of the rents and landlords if we go back to another crisis during World War II, but obviously that's beyond the scope of this summer. But we did have a similar situation with the problem of rent. There are a lot of other positive things in the budget. Obviously, I told you the two things that were most positive for us, and also how we would like them to improve. Yes, we would like to see the vouchers out for Christmas. We feel that, or at least the feeling that we get from our customers is that not that people do not have money at this stage, it's that people are afraid of the stability of their income. So they're staying back from spending their actual money. So if you go and see the bank deposits, possibly you'll find them higher than the previous months. Granted, no one is spending. So we need to take these into account. Now, the 100 vouchers, 60 for restaurant and 40 for the other outlets, I would say I obviously would have preferred it as it was. But if we take into account a holistic approach, and that these vouchers will also boost other parts of the economy, as Roderick would say, it's a multiplier effect. So you start generating a more feel-good factor, so people start encouraging themselves more to go out. So we do appreciate that move, but we would have preferred it if that move would have happened during the Christmas period to ensure that the Maltese may enjoy the Christmas as much as normal as it could be.
But when you had your meetings with the Prime Minister and the question of vouchers came up, did you request vouchers for the Christmas period, or was this not discussed?
No, it was discussed. There were different views about it, in the sense that there was a view from the government side that there is the possibility that the Maltese would, in any case, want to enjoy their Christmas and possibly, however, with or without the vouchers, spend that. We are not so sure about that statement. So government kept in its position on this. They may be right, we may be right. We'll see this when the time comes.
No, thank you. In its reaction, the MHRA says, and I quote, "The social initiatives in this budget will inspire a feel-good factor across all society." Do you agree with the statements? Does the budget meet the needs of your associates members?
Well, I think overall the budget did have the specific target to encourage or promote or have this feel-good factor. And there were various measures that people will definitely appreciate. The increase in the tax refunds, the increase in the pensions, and children's allowance, the changes in tax brackets. So there was various things that will put money back into the people's pockets for them to spend and to feel more comfortable. In this sense, I think government was very smart, and perhaps I will contradict what I said before on this, in the sense that if planned well, timed with the vouchers, there could be a continuous feel-good factor rather than giving the economy a push and then it goes slow again and the push again. So the timing of how the implementation of these will be very, very important. So if it's not the vouchers, if the tax refunds are issued before, then we can see a smooth recovery of the economy rather than having peaks and troughs. If you ask whether the budget is meeting the expectations of the members, the immediate reactions we had was very positive budget, but the main concern remains the wage supplement and the issue I discussed before regarding the subsidizing of 40% of employees rather than all. But overall, we can say that this has been a budget that aims for people to feel good and to encourage them to get out of their home and not to give up, in beating this virus and going back to our normal lives. We do expect further measures at a later stage, obviously depending on the situation and how the economy is going. But we've seen that government did this 3 or 4 times this year. So I do not think that yesterday's speech is the end of the measures.
Thank you. So, Reuben, I know over the past few months, and a number of eateries closed down in Malta. Yet I also know several new ones have been opening in the last couple of months. And right here in Mostar, where I live, there's a new restaurant announcing its opening this winter. There appears to be sort of conflicting messages here. What's your take on this? I mean, some close.
Well, not really. When all this started, we already started estimating that 5 to 10% of existing operations will close, in spite of government intervention. And we do have a number of restaurants that did actually close. With respect to those opening, there are various things that one needs to keep in mind. So we have a few that were actually forced to close their previous establishment and open a new one for one of the reasons reported, at least, was the one we mentioned before. The landlord did not budge on reducing the rents, so they had no choice but to move away. Others were in the middle of an investment. So the choice was, I either take this opportunity to finish up my project or just call it a day and do not proceed with my investment. Let us remember that up to before COVID, restaurants were encouraged to invest in the sense that the industry, as we said before, was growing. So many decided to proceed with that investment. We have encouraged them and helped them also to tap into funding opportunities to proceed with their projects. So even here, there was a lot of assistance from the authorities, from various government agencies. There was also those that took the opportunity and who are possibly financially more stable than others, that took the opportunity to take over operations which were in dire straits and then improve on them. So there are various scenarios. The reality is that we will continue to see these scenarios, particularly if the situation goes worse with the virus, because if government does not continue to sustain the way it's sustaining, we literally will have survival of the fittest. So then the cash entities will start either taking over for nothing the less performing financially wise entities, others that not could sustain the expenses and will start to be closing down. We will see more closures in our view, in the sense that yes, government is assisting, yes, there are the vouchers, yes, we will create a feel-good factor, but there is a part of the industry that will give up hope. But more than that, we have a factor that we have not discussed today, because today we said, let's give, including myself, let's give the consumer more energy, more power to go out there and spend. Mm-hmm. But I'd like to mention that as the season gets colder, many restaurants will have less spaces to serve in. We will not have outdoor dining, and with the current social distancing, it will be impossible to cover the costs they have. We have a scenario in Malta where we have a lot of small restaurants. So with a 3-meter distance between one table and another, we have restaurants that will have 1, 2, or 3 tables maximum. Now, with 1 or 2 tables, you still have to pay a chef. You still have to pay a waiter. You still have the electricity bills. You still have everything, but definitely not sustainable. So even that we will need to monitor. And thankfully, I must admit that there is continuous discussion between our association and government on this matter too. Hopefully, together also with the health authorities, we will find a solution to reduce those 3 meters. We do have our propositions to be fair, that we have seen in other countries. And with sectors in Malta, they have to work. Like in the sectors, of technicians or hairdressers, nail technicians, sorry, or hairdressers. What I'm talking is about one perspex between tables and two different ventilation systems within restaurants.
That's quite an investment to start off with as well.
Exactly, and that's why we are discussing with our members and with government, because we do wish that there's an incentive for that as well. There are some schemes one which be able to benefit from existing, but we would like them more specific to this circumstance and specifically to restaurants investing in such equipment.